The story will be told from the perspective of the main female character.
I always believed Christmas was meant to feel safe and warm. But that evening, standing in my parents' living room, it felt like every lamp in the house lost its brightness at the same time. The air changed. Something heavy settled in my chest. My sister, Madison, lifted her glass. She didn't smile at me. She didn't even glance away. She looked straight ahead and said loudly, clearly, so no one could miss it, "Mom is leaving everything to me." The reaction came instantly. Laughter, cheers, glasses raised. The sound hit me harder than the sentence itself. It wasn't what she said. It was how easily it landed. My parents didn't turn toward me. Not my mother, not my father. No one did. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself. I just turned my head slowly toward my dad and asked him one quiet question, one simple sentence. His hand shook, just a little, enough to notice, enough to make the whole room go still. And even then, that moment wasn't truly the beginning. If someone had asked what my family was like when I was growing up, they would have said we were close. That was the word people always used. They said it at church dinners, school performances, neighborhood cookouts. They saw my mother, Linda, smiling wide. They saw Madison soaking up praise like sunlight. They saw my dad, Robert, nodding along, calm, careful, keeping everything smooth. And then there was me, somewhere off to the side, holding coats, carrying food, cleaning up plates. From the outside, we looked even, balanced, like nothing was off. But a family can look steady, while all the pressure rests on one person. Madison was treated like the son of the house. Everything centered on her, her classes, her games, her friends, her future. My mother talked about her life like she was reading from notes she already memorized. Madison didn't do chores. She had promise. That was the reason. I cooked. I cleaned. I handled things because I was responsible. And the way my mother said responsible always sounded like something smaller, like it meant less. I learned how to stay unnoticed, long before I understood what that really meant. Holidays made it clearer. Madison's gifts came wrapped in thick paper, tied with ribbons, each one labeled with a neat handwritten card. Mine were useful items, things no one could complain about without sounding rude. Socks, a planner, a scarf bought at the last minute. Every Christmas photo told the same story. Madison in the center, lit by the tree, framed perfectly. Me beside her, half in shadow, half fading into the wall. My dad noticed. He always did. He saw the small differences, the larger ones too. After dinner, he'd slide me the better slice of pie when no one was watching. He'd ask about my job when everyone else forgot I even had one. He wasn't loud. He didn't confront anyone, but he stayed present. And sometimes, presence is the only thing keeping you afloat. As we got older, the pattern became harder to ignore. Madison moved through rooms like applause was waiting for her. She walked in assuming attention belonged to her. My mother fed that confidence with every nod, every proud smile. She told stories about Madison's achievements. Some were stretched, some were close to true. All of them were polished. I worked quietly. I lived quietly. I showed up, especially for my dad. When he was hospitalized a few years earlier, I stayed overnight in a hard chair beside his bed. I listened to the machines, learned their sounds. Madison visited once. She left early. She posted a picture online about family time. I didn't hate her for it. I just adjusted, the way everyone else did. But this Christmas felt wrong from the moment I stepped inside the house. Maybe it was the way my mother looked at Madison, like she was relieved. Maybe it was the fake brightness in her voice. Or the way she checked on me, not with care, but like she was making sure I wouldn't interfere. Or maybe it was the tension in my father's eyes. Something was waiting. Christmas Eve always made me question whether love in our family was real or just practiced. By the time guests arrived, the house felt crowded. Voices echoed. Coats piled up. Boots lined the hallway. The smell of food mixed with cold air every time the door opened. I moved through it all quietly, careful, invisible. Madison didn't move at all. She floated. She stood near the fireplace in a dark green dress, light catching in her hair like she'd been placed there on purpose. Every new arrival went straight to her. "You look amazing. Your mom must be so proud. You've always had something special." I heard everything. I was close enough for that, but far enough to be ignored. I kept bringing food from the kitchen. Crackers, cheese, drinks. I refilled glasses while Madison talked about her job, her plans, her busy life. My mother stayed at her side, nodding, adding comments like emphasis. "That's why Madison will be handling things when we're older," she said once, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She's a natural leader." It was meant to sound casual. It was. A few relatives glanced at me, quick looks, polite, the kind you give the sibling who wasn't chosen. My chest tightened. I pushed it down. I'd heard comments like that my whole life. They didn't break me anymore. They just pressed on something sore that never healed. I slipped back into the kitchen, letting the noise fade. My dad stood by the counter, pretending to adjust the oven even though it was off. When he saw me, his shoulders relaxed. "You okay?" he asked softly. "I'm fine," I said. It was a lie. He studied me, like he was holding words he wasn't ready to use. Then he nodded, small, firm, like he'd decided something. "Stay close tonight," he said quietly. "Just stay close." Before I could ask what he meant, someone called his name from the other room, and the moment ended. When I carried the next tray into the living room, Madison stood right in the center, telling a story about a major opportunity she was sure would come through. She spoke with confidence, like the outcome was already settled. My mother jumped in quickly, adding how Madison always landed on her feet, how some people were simply born to lead a family forward. The message wasn't hidden. It never was. Dinner began with voices stacked on top of each other. Compliments flowed toward Madison without pause. Someone admired her dress. Someone else asked about her future. At one point, my mother announced that Madison had the right temperament to manage family matters. People nodded like they already understood what that meant. The table felt uneven, like all the attention was leaning to one side, pushing the rest of us down. My dad caught my eye from across the table and gave the smallest shake of his head. A warning, or maybe an apology. Then the balance broke. Even though I didn't know what was coming, even though I had no idea Madison was about to tear the night open, my dad did. I could feel it. The knowledge sat in the room, quiet and tense, waiting. Plates were still warm when dinner slowed into that strange pause between courses. People leaned back. Conversations softened. The room breathed out. But the house felt tight, like it was listening. My mother stood to refill drinks. As she passed behind Madison, she placed a hand on her shoulder, not casually, proudly. "This is the year everything comes together," she said. "Madison is ready to take on more. She'll be handling the important family matters from now on." No one asked questions. They didn't need to. They'd heard versions of this before. Madison smiled like someone who had just been crowned. "Well, someone has to keep things running," she said, trying and failing to sound modest. "Mom and I talk about it all the time. She trusts me." "And why wouldn't I?" my mother added. "You've always been reliable." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Reliable. Today, it was Madison. That word had always been mine, but only when my mother wanted work done without resistance. An aunt across the table looked at me and offered a tight, sympathetic smile. I couldn't tell if she felt sorry for me or just uncomfortable. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway. The house was warm, but I felt cold. Like the space between me and everyone else had finally disappeared, leaving nothing to soften the distance. A memory surfaced without warning. 3 winters earlier, my dad spent a week in the hospital. Madison stopped by once. She took a picture of her coffee beside his bed. Then she left early because she had dinner plans. I stayed every night, half asleep in hard chairs, adjusting blankets, learning the sound of the monitors. Nurses whispered, "You're a good daughter." My mother never thanked me, but she thanked Madison for showing up when it mattered. The memory burned. I stepped into the garage, needing air. Cold rushed over my face and cleared my head. The same string lights my dad hung years ago still lined the shelves. Small, warm bulbs flickering like they refused to quit. He and I used to talk out here when I was younger, when Madison was busy being admired. I stood there staring at the tools when my dad came in behind me. "You all right?" he asked. I hesitated. "Mom," making it pretty clear who she wants in charge. He nodded slowly. "She's been doing that for years." "I know," I said, "but tonight it feels like she's erasing me." He let out a long breath, like he'd been carrying that truth too long. "Rachel," he said, stepping closer, "you're not invisible, not to everyone." His voice shook, just enough. I studied his face. Something heavy sat there, something unspoken. "Dad," I asked carefully, "is there something I should know?" He didn't answer directly. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Solid, steady. "Just stay grounded tonight," he said. "Some things need the right moment." Before I could say anything else, someone called from inside. The moment broke, but his words stayed with me. They settled deep in my chest, warm and waiting. I didn't know it yet, but they were about to ignite. When we returned to the living room, the mood had shifted. Voices were louder, looser, fueled by wine and the idea of holiday peace. The fire crackled, filling the room with soft light. Madison stood where she always did, centered. My mother hovered beside her, refilling her glass before it was empty. Someone tapped a spoon against a wine glass. "Speech," a cousin called. "It's Christmas, Madison, say something." Of course they wanted her. Madison lifted her glass, smiling like someone who already owned the room. "Well," she said, "this year has been special, and tonight is even more special." She paused, letting anticipation grow. "Mom and I have been talking," she continued, glancing at my mother, "and she's decided to leave everything to me." For a second, I thought I'd misunderstood. Then the room exploded. Cheers, applause. Glasses raised like a celebration had just been declared. My mother beamed. Nodding like this confirmed something she'd always believed. Madison soaked it in. "We've talked about it for months," she added. "Mom wants things organized, and she knows I can handle it." My stomach tightened, not just from the words, but from how easy they were for her. No one looked at me. No one checked my face. No one questioned fairness. Across the room, my dad stood rigid, jaw tight, still, the only person not swept up in it. My mother raised her glass again, to the future of this family. Glasses clinked. The noise grew louder. My heart pounded. I didn't stand. I didn't raise my glass. My dad noticed. Madison laughed lightly. "Come on, Rachel, be a good sport. You know this stuff isn't really your thing." There it was, the familiar dismissal wrapped in humor. I looked at her, really looked, and something inside me went quiet. Not broken, not shaking. In that quiet stillness, a dozen Christmases passed through my mind. A dozen times my mother pushed me aside so Madison could shine. A dozen moments my father watched silently, storing something behind his eyes. A dozen nights in stiff hospital chairs, holding his hand while Madison posted updates from a restaurant. And suddenly, the silence inside me shaped into one clear thought. Enough. I stood slowly. The chatter dimmed around me like someone turned a dial. Heads turned. Eyes followed me. My mother frowned. "Rachel, sit down," she whispered sharply. Madison smirked. "This isn't about you." I didn't look at either of them. I looked at my father. "Dad," I said, voice steady, "want to share the real news." The room froze. His hand shook, subtle, almost invisible, but undeniable. Robert, who always stayed calm through every storm, shifted his weight. His eyes flicked from me to the guests to my mother. A tremor ran through his fingers as he reached for an envelope tucked behind a stack of napkins on the side table. Madison's smile faltered. "What news?" she asked, her voice cracked at the edge. "Dad, what news?" The house fell silent. Every sound stopped. Laughter, clinking glasses, even the fire's crackle. The stillness pressed in, thick, expectant. My father stepped forward. The envelope shook in his hand. "I wasn't planning to do this tonight." he said, voice low, carrying years of weight. But since we're making announcements. My mother's smile stiffened. What are you doing? He didn't look at her. He opened the envelope and pulled out documents. I updated my will months ago, he said, projecting his voice now so every word landed heavy. Everything I own, my savings, my paid-off house, retirement accounts, long-term investments, goes to Rachel. A gasp split the silence. My mother's hand shot to her chest. What? You can't, we discussed. No, he said finally, turning to her. You discussed, you planned, you pushed, but you didn't ask me, and you didn't treat both daughters fairly. Panic spread across Madison's face. Dad, this is insane. Mom already said. I don't care what your mother said, he snapped, voice cracking. She can leave you whatever she wants. But my estate, everything I've worked for, goes to the child who stood by me, the child who showed up, the child who cared. His gaze rested on me. Madison's face twisted. You're punishing me because I have a life, because I don't babysit everyone's feelings. No, he said quietly, because you only show up when it benefits you. My mother grabbed his arm. You're making a scene. He shook her off, gentle but firm. The only scene being made tonight is the one you two created by turning this family into a competition. Madison's voice rose frantic. This isn't fair. You can't do this. You can't just hand everything to her. Fair, my father said, his voice softening in the saddest way. He looked at me. At that moment, the weight of every unspoken thing between us filled the room. The nights in the hospital, the quiet conversations in the garage, the ways I had been present when no one else noticed. When he spoke again, his voice broke. One of my daughters treated me like an obligation. The other treated me like family. Madison's mouth fell open. My mother stepped back, as if the words physically hit her ears. No one moved. No one breathed. The silence cracked first, then everything else did. Shouting started almost immediately. Madison spun toward my mother, demanding explanations she thought she was owed. My mother fired back, voice sharp, pride shattered in front of the very people she tried to impress. Their argument tangled into a mess of blame and denial, each trying to rewrite what had just happened. My father didn't speak another word. He stepped to my side, placing a steady hand on my back. A quiet declaration, needing no audience. For the first time all night, I felt the ground stop tilting beneath me. Relatives avoided eye contact, unsure where to stand now that the brightest light in the room had flickered out. Some nodded toward me, awkwardly, like they realized they'd been cheering for the wrong person for years. I moved toward the front door, pulling my coat tight as cold December air rushed in. Snow drifted softly under the porch light, slow and silent, like the world outside. I had no idea my life had just split open in the best possible way. For the first time in years, the cold didn't hurt. Walking down the quiet street, I realized something simple. Family isn't about who shines the brightest. It's about who stands beside you when no one is watching. That night didn't break me. It finally set me free. The room went completely quiet when my dad picked up the envelope. Everyone froze. Madison's face went white. What news? She asked, voice trembling. Dad, what news? No one spoke. The fire crackled softly, but the sound felt small in the tension. Glasses clinked once and stopped. Even laughter seemed to vanish. Everything felt heavy, waiting for what was coming. I watched him step forward, holding the papers carefully. I wasn't planning to do this tonight, he said slowly, but since we're making announcements. Mom's smile stiffened. What are you doing? She snapped. He didn't answer her. He opened the envelope and pulled out the documents. I updated my will months ago, he said, louder now so everyone could hear. Everything I own, my savings, my paid-off house, retirement accounts, and investments, goes to Rachel. A gasp went through the room. Mom put her hand to her chest. What? You can't, we discussed. No, he said, turning to her. You discussed, you planned, you pushed, but you didn't ask me, and you didn't treat both daughters fairly. Madison stepped forward, panic on her face. Dad, this is insane. Mom already said. I don't care what your mother said, he snapped. She can leave you whatever she wants. But my estate, everything I've worked for, goes to the child who stood by me, who showed up, who cared. I felt my chest tighten. His eyes were on me. Madison's face twisted in anger. You're punishing me because I have a life, because I don't babysit everyone's feelings. No, he said quietly, because you only show up when it benefits you. Mom grabbed his arm. You're making a scene. He shook her off, gentle but firm. The only scene being made tonight is the one you two created by turning this family into a competition. Madison's voice got higher. This isn't fair. You can't just give everything to her. Fair, he said, voice low and sad. You want to talk about fair? He looked at me. And in that moment, all the quiet nights I stayed in the hospital, all the times I helped without anyone noticing, filled the room. Then he said it. One of my daughters treated me like an obligation. The other treated me like family. Madison's mouth fell open. Mom stepped back, stunned. No one moved. No one breathed. The silence cracked first, then the shouting started. Madison spun toward Mom, demanding answers. Mom fired back, voice sharp, trying to defend herself in front of everyone she wanted to impress. Their words tangled. Blame and denial flew across the room. Each tried to rewrite the moment that had just happened. I stayed quiet. I didn't need to speak. I felt my dad's hand on my back, steady, grounding me. For the first time all night, I felt solid. Some relatives avoided my eyes. Others gave a small nod, like they were realizing they'd been cheering for the wrong person for years. I stepped toward the front door, pulled my coat tight as cold December air hit me. Snow drifted slowly under the porch light, soft and silent. I didn't know it yet, but my life had just split open in the best possible way. For the first time in years, the cold didn't hurt. Walking down the quiet street, I thought about all the Christmases when I was invisible. All the nights I stayed by my dad in the hospital while Madison posted updates online. All the small work I did quietly while everyone else got the praise. Family isn't about who shines the brightest. It's about who stands there when no one else does, who shows up, who cares. That truth settled inside me, warm against the cold. I finally felt seen. I finally felt free. If you've ever been treated like the invisible one in your family, share your story below. I read every comment. And if this hits home for you, stay with me. There are more stories coming and you won't want to miss the next one.